Well, let me begin by first of all thanking everyone for being here today. I was told today's a holiday. I was not aware of it. People in operations cannot afford to take holidays, so I usually completely lose track of what's a holiday and what's not. Um, as you can see from the title of my talk, it's nothing to do with supply chains, nothing to do with cars, nothing to do with automotive components, nothing to do with management. So what am I doing here? I do not know. I presume that I'm here to offer a perspective which the other speakers have not done so far. And what I would like to do is utilize this opportunity to give you a perspective on the pharmaceutical biotech sector in India, how it's influenced by what's happening outside India, and also how we in India are gearing ourselves to influence what's happening outside India, which is actually what globalization is all about. It's not a one-way street. In my sector, technology and operations go almost hand in hand. And this is why when the founder of my company, Kiran Mazumdar, told me, what designation would you like to have? Well, I didn't have a choice about president, but I had a choice about how to describe myself. And I chose operations and technology, because I felt, this was many years ago, this was 15 years ago when I joined the company, because I felt that the biotech pharmaceutical sector, it's very difficult to disentangle a manufacturing kind of a work from a innovation development kind of a work. There's a very, very strong overlap. And the overlap is not just in terms of having different sets of people working in different buildings or different locations and then transferring something from one set of people to another set of people. It's about two sets of people working together, both in development as well as in manufacturing. So that's a key difference. I'm sure it's similar in other so-called knowledge-driven economies or knowledge-driven industries. Companies across the spectrum will tell you that every company is driven or knowledge intensive. It's the question of the overlap between the operations and the research that to my mind, really determines which company is truly knowledge driven and which company is not. Let me begin by giving you a snapshot of the pharmaceutical manufacturing. When I say pharma, I'm covering pharma and biotech. The biotech industry is very, very nascent in India, so a lot of my information is from the pharmaceutical sector, but it would probably apply to the biotech sector as well. Let me give you a snapshot of the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector in India. First, I list all the positives. We have an established track record of manufacturing generic, chemically synthesized pharmaceutical products. Ever since India established the Process Patent Act in 1970, the Indian companies developed a considerable expertise in developing small molecules, that is chemically synthesized molecules for the pharmaceutical sector. And today, we have the largest number of US FDA certified facilities outside of the US. I think it's around 72, but the number keeps changing because the US FDA inspectors have begun to visit India every 3 months. So every 3 months, there are new companies getting added to the list. We have, of course, a very large domestic market with diverse patient and disease profiles. This market, of course, within India is largely focused on anti-infectives, that is antibiotics is an example of that, antiretrovirals, which is mainly targeted at the AIDS, HIV segment, vaccines, which is again targeted at basically addressing issues of child mortality. Most of the vaccines are targeted at children. And anti-inflammatory or OTC products. I think I wouldn't call it anti-inflammatory. Let's broaden it and call it OTC products, which are targeted, which is like your headache and common cold and body ache and those kind of products. We, of course, have a very large pool of science and engineering graduates. We keep every time when the people talk about the India story, the first thing people say is about the talent pool, about the large pool of science and engineering graduates. However, I would like to caution you, coming from the side of operations, process development, scale up, the large science and engineering graduate pool in India needs a great deal of training, a great deal of adaptation to make it what I would say industrially relevant. And the reason that is happening is because of a disconnect between science and engineering being taught in our schools and the kind of vocational training that is actually required to implement that science and engineering into practice. And the absence of very good vocational training institutes means that while most of our people know how to simulate the operation of a fermenter, none of them know how to operate it. The attraction of global pharmaceutical companies for them to come to India is not looking at India as a market for their products. Because even today, India has this affordability issue as far as global pharmaceutical products are concerned. Indian companies are able to market products in India very well because of their cost effectiveness. But the global pharmaceutical products with their innovative, high-priced products find it very difficult to enter India. It's certainly not at the same price points that they have elsewhere in the world. So what most global pharmaceutical or biotech companies are looking to India for are as a cost-effective base for research and development and outsourcing parts of their manufacturing operations. Continuing my snapshot of the Indian pharmaceutical sector, some of the negatives. It's a highly fragmented industry. I'm told, I could be wrong on this, but I'm told there's of the order of 20,000 units in the whole area of pharmaceutical, whether it's pharmaceutical ingredients or pharmaceutical bulk products or formulations or across the chain. However, less than 250 are actually in the organized sector. So it's the organized sector that is the industry that has, that is evolving and trying to span the entire value chain. And I shall come to talk about our value chain in the pharma biotech sector towards the end of my presentation, when I talk about differentiation through technology. Most Indian companies, except the very big, I would say out of the 250 companies, probably excepting the top 25 or so companies, most Indian companies lack the experience of backward integration from a manufacturing process development kind of competence to a discovery product development. What I mean is the linkage between discovery and product development to commercialization of the product is lacking in most companies in India, except it's changing a lot, but it's changing, I would say, with largely the top 25 or so companies in India. This has to percolate down to the vast majority of companies. The strength in chemical sciences has to be extended to biological sciences. Why do I say that? I will show in one of the subsequent slides that most of, for example, the new product developments, the new registrations happening with the US FDA or the European regulators are increasingly seeing an increasing fraction of biotech-derived products. And unless Indian companies develop the competence to develop, commercialize biotech-derived products, 10 years from now, we would be still talking about the lack of knowledge within the Indian companies and how they are not able to integrate across the value chain. To be developing a biotech product or developing a new pharmaceutical product, not just a biotech product, is a fairly time-consuming job. It's also a fairly expensive proposition, requires a great deal of investment, a great deal of staying power. And many Indian companies lack the kind of financial strength or the financial ability to take that kind of financial risk to go at the long haul. Basically, these developments have long gestation periods. And so one needs to not go by what the next quarter looks like. One needs to take a long-term view in this whole sector. Finally, most Indian companies lack the people with requisite skills to evaluate technologies, to be able to in-license or out-license technologies, to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. And this is very important. Many people, for example, tend to ask, so are you working on a new product? Have you discovered a new product? Now, my answer to that is most companies, I'm not saying about Indian companies, most pharmaceutical companies in the world do not discover their own products. Most pharmaceutical companies in the world develop new products, but the discovery is usually left to either university labs, academic institutes, or government-funded research institutes. And the typical chain is that there is usually a small spin-off company which has licensed this kind of a discovery platform from such a research institute and established some kind of a platform technology. And once that platform technology has been validated to some extent on a small scale, then you have the large biotech or pharmaceutical companies trying to collaborate with some of these smaller discovery companies and either in-licensing the technologies from them or buying over the companies or in some way partnering with these companies to absorb the technology, and then they bring in their scale-up muscle, the regulatory muscle, the financial marketing, sales distribution muscle to make the product into a commercial success. So I'm not saying that Indian companies lack the skill to discover new molecules. Indian companies need not have that skill. But Indian companies should have the skill to be able to evaluate partners, to be able to evaluate technologies. And that is something which is, I feel, needs to be strengthened considerably. And the only way you can do that is, coming back to my second point, is if Indian companies themselves focus a lot on discovery and product development, at least then the attempts to do something on your own gives you the skill to evaluate what others have done. I'm taking now three sort of disparate issues and trying to put together in my next three slides what impact these three different issues have on the competitiveness of, say, the Indian manufacturing sector as in pharmaceutical and biotech, as it applies to the pharmaceutical and biotech companies. It's well known, we have, as per our obligations, India has become a partner of the world, become a fully compliant partner, I would say, in terms of recognition of product patents, effective January 1st this year. This eliminates the opportunity for a number of companies to manufacture products under patent, that is new products. I'm not talking about products which are already off patent, in India for local consumption and exports. What does that mean? It means that there were earlier, because India did not recognize product patents and recognized only process patents, there was a significant time lag between the sale of products, new products, in these less regulated markets of which India was also a member of, and sale into the more lucrative, highly regulated markets, examples of which would be the US, Europe, Japan, and such markets. This elimination of this time lag between the ability to launch a product in the less developed world and then launch it in the regulated markets means an elimination of one part of the learning curve. Because this opportunity to sell in the less regulated markets actually gave manufacturing companies an opportunity to optimize the process, improve yields, make the process more cost competitive, change to new technologies if a given technology did not work, and finally validate an optimized technology to take it into the regulated markets. Now, this opportunity would be greatly reduced. I'm not saying worldwide patents for all products will expire at the same time. That doesn't happen. But the time frame of expiry of product patents across different markets of the globe will now compress considerably. It also, of course, opens an opportunity for global companies to manufacture new products in India, either directly or by licensing it to Indian companies. So patents was one aspect. Regulatory is another aspect. The pharmaceutical biotech sector worldwide is a highly regulated sector. The reason it is highly regulated is because of the mandate to protect human health. So the mandate of regulatory agencies worldwide is, one, to make sure that your product is effective, which means it treats the disease that it is supposed to treat. Second, that it is safe, that in the process of treating the disease that it is supposed to treat, it does not create side effects. And this is the mandate of regulatory agencies worldwide. And hence our industry is an extremely regulated industry.